Are you a thoughtful leader? Maybe you are. Maybe you think you are. Let's find out. I'm Mindy Gibbins-Klein. I'm author of The Thoughtful Leader and host of the Thoughtful Leader podcast. Thoughtful leadership is all about thought leadership that goes above and beyond. Thought leadership that is truly new and original, exciting, disruptive, maybe even groundbreaking. Because let's face it, we need to raise the bar. My guests and I are absolutely obsessed with finding truly original thought leadership, and I'm going to bring you so many exciting ideas and opportunities, things for you to think about, and chances for you to push your thinking that you'll be very glad you tuned in. So thanks so much for checking out Thoughtful Leadership and the Thoughtful Leader podcast. I look forward to connecting with you very, very soon. Welcome to the show. My guest today is the amazing thoughtful leader, John Michaelis, who is an expert in the area of AI. Hello, John.
Morning, Mindy. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Good. Goodness me, we have so much to talk about, and our listeners want to hear all about AI and how it can help us be more thoughtful, or that's kind of like what I'm thinking. What do you think about the two subjects together?
Okay, the big thing about AI is that what it does is it automates away routine. And the people who will be most successful with AI are those who play to their human strengths. So that's things like emotional intelligence, critical thinking, abstract thinking, creativity, and empathy. Now, what I always encourage people to do is to think about their lived experiences and who they are as a whole person and what value that brings to others, be that if they're in a counselling type work, if they're in hard-nosed business, it doesn't matter. Those experiences make that person unique. And then what to do with AI is to look at the things that are repetitive, which they might not even consider routine, but what's repetitive? What could they learn from? And then to look at AI tools that can be used to take that mundane activity away from them so that they've got more capacity to play to their unique characteristics.
Yeah, that's what we want. We want to play to our strengths and our unique characteristics, to be human. So even though you didn't use the word thoughtful or thoughtfulness, you spoke about emotional intelligence and critical thinking and all these things that are thoughtful skills. So you feel, well, I'm not going to put words in your mouth. I think you feel that humans can be more thoughtful, in fact, when they delegate the rest of the stuff to AI technologies. Would that be correct?
Absolutely. I think, and it's even more acute as we come out of the pandemic, is we need new ideas. We need new ways of communicating and getting the best out of each other, whether that's at work, whether that's at home, or in our hobbies. And it's having the capacity, instead of feeling so rushed, to be able to look at the people you're working with or the people you're engaging with and try and understand a bit more about them. Why are they perhaps doing something that doesn't quite great with us, perhaps great with us? Why are they slightly different? And that's not a bad thing, those differences. I think we should celebrate those differences. But we need the capacity to be able to think outside our own blinkered lives of, I've got to get this done because I've got to be home to give the kids tea at 5 o'clock or something. So it is about looking ahead, looking up, respecting people, which I think does part of the whole thoughtful piece, and then just trying to appreciate where they might be coming from and what you're suggesting, perhaps in a business sense, looks like through their eyes. It's really almost, when we come onto this concept of thoughtful, I would call it proactive empathy. Instead of just saying, oh, I'm doing something nice that I learned on a course 20 years ago, it's actually proactively challenging yourself to see something the way that the people you're engaging with see it and to understand.
Yeah, well, seek to understand. Sometimes we can't understand others. We try. And thank you very much for sharing that. As you know, I'm very interested in the head and the heart aspect of thoughtfulness. How did you become so wise? How did you get to this place with these insights, John?
Is that a nice way of saying, John, you're old? I've got to honestly say, it is through lived experience. Now, I'm by nature, very competitive person. You know, I played a lot of sport when I was young, as well as being in sales. And then it was all about being top of the leaderboard. But as you go through life, you realise that winning in a tactical sense doesn't bring people with you. It doesn't leave you feeling fulfilled. In fact, in some ways, it leaves you feeling a little bit more isolated because people are a little bit fearful. And it's recognising and getting an understanding that what people remember about you is actually how you make them feel. It's not what you've done, the fact you were the top salesman 3 years running, or the fact you played more first team games for football team or rugby team. It's how you make them feel. And if they see you in a pub or a coffee bar, they come up and like to have a chat. And it's recognising that the world is bigger than all of us. And what we've got to do is engage with people, see things through their eyes. And you know the really funny thing? When I went out into business myself, which was sort of about a halfway point through my career, I actually found that so many people were prepared to help me pretty well without being asked. Like when you set up by yourself, they'd say, well, let me introduce you to so-and-so, because I think they could be interested in using your services. And that really reinforced for me that the most important thing is to be part of the community. It's not to be the one who wins all the time so overtly.
Yeah, well, that's part of our culture, at least in the Western world. But let's not talk about the huge macro issues. I am still very interested in how you became such a talented psychologist and counselor when your background was tech. So I'm sure the listeners want to hear about how you got to this point, because really, you know, you were in the tech world for a long time, same time as me. How did that happen? How did you get here?
So when I set up by myself, one of the two businesses was a change consultancy. And a lot of the work we did was in the sales space, but typically bringing new products or new services to market for our clients. So winning the first customers and making sure they were happy. And that inevitably meant delving back into my client's organisation, into all the different departments who weren't particularly sales focused necessarily. The delivery people particularly, you talk about tech, some of whom had developed a leading edge product, so they were very great depth technically, and they didn't really that doesn't sit comfortably with the rough and tumble of the commercial world. But it's a question of when something didn't work, like a feature or something, it's being able to bring those people on board so they want to help you, that they're not defensive if they've made a mistake in the code, to understand that it doesn't matter, everyone makes mistakes. Let's just be clear where we are and where we're going. And it's to give people that feeling of security so that they can do what is necessary to be done. So I think that's an explanation. The short answer to your question is purely through lived experience and learning there's a better way of getting things done than just being off at the lead of the charge and saying, come on, boys and girls, let's go.
Yeah. Okay. I can see that. And nobody is 100% one or the other. So, technical or human skills, we all have both and we all need both. I'm going to bring this back to AI, of course, because this is the point. In your book, and I really would like you to share the main messages of your book, I think you paint an optimistic and positive picture of the future. So can you share with the listeners what your vision of the future is as regards humans interacting with and getting the most out of AI?
Okay, sure. Let's begin in the workspace, if I may, because that's probably the easiest that people can correlate to. I think as we come out, particularly out of the pandemic, we are going to see a rise of automation. Now, many people fear automation because that means job losses, they feel. Now, one thing that we've seen as humans over decades, if not centuries, is that when there's a step change in the level of automation, like, for instance, the invention of the internal combustion engine in the car, actually more jobs are created because it creates new opportunities. So coming back to your original question, which was the AI one, how will AI create more opportunities? Well, I think there's going to be a lot more automation. We also have the post-pandemic issue that governments are going to be desperate to get people to do anything productive they can. So I think we're going to see more people being in a position where they can embrace side hustles, probably, or multiple employment, but not quite in the same way that it's been done so far. And then those people are going to do something that perhaps they feel passionate about, something where they've got a natural ability that's either born in them or, again, learned through, I've used the expression before, lived experience. And then what the AI will do is it will help them realise that vision, because a lot of the things that perhaps historically people think they've had to pay for, like, for instance, an assistant to organise their calendar, you can get AI to do that. Perhaps you need tools to be able to analyse text and help if you're trying to create a profile on social media and help with your developing content. Yes, there's AI tools that can do that. So all these things that are taking people away from the core piece of their business, which is typically when they engage with customers, there's going to be AI to be able to do that and help that. So this means that I think people, to be successful, need to think it's not so much how do I do all the admin and everything else. It's about what do I do when I am engaging with my customers or doing my most creative work, and then looking to offset everything else. So what I see is lots of people engaging more with each other, some direct face-to-face, hopefully, when we're allowed to. So I think there will be an element of that. But I think the other thing is we've also learned a lot more how to use video tools such as Zoom and actually use them. They're ingrained now culturally, which perhaps they weren't but last summer. But now we've had more lockdowns. I think they're becoming ingrained culturally. So there's multiple ways you can engage with people now. And it's people playing to that. And obviously, if we're using tools like Zoom as well, it gives people the opportunity to think internationally without having to worry about the travel and the other complications there are with going international. Yeah. So I see it being a very engaging society, and one where I think that will actually reduce some barriers, be they through class, be they through religious divide. I think there's we have an opportunity to break down more barriers as well.
Well, that is a very positive picture of the future, and that's why I invited you on the show, because you do think ahead and you have that positive intention and real ideas. So I'm very grateful to you for sharing that. I loved the phrase, your most creative self. I think that's how you put it, because, well, I loved the title of your book too, U++, that you can actually be your best self and your most creative self when you work with, or when you complement your skills, maybe with AI type.
Complement your skills is exactly the way to put it. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, working with as opposed to against, and not being fearful. And I just think, well, knowledge is power in many cases. So people should read up on it, listen to you, follow you. Listeners, his details are in the show notes. So please look him up. Please connect. John, you are coming across as a very wise man. And I know that you have possibly made a mistake or two or error of judgment in your career. Is there one that you'd be willing to share with us, just so that people can know that you're human?
Oh, there's more than I can count. But let's
one that you're willing to share and how.
No. Okay. There's plenty of business faux pas, but I think the biggest one, frankly, was being unwilling to ask for help. That is because I always perceived it as a weakness. And frankly, I was a bit flattered when I started my consultancy, but people came to me and said, oh, you should. I didn't actually go really and ask. And I think there is no harm in asking. It isn't degrading, but it's something that I think I'm getting over it now, but I'm still not very good at it. And I think if one does ask for help, people are actually flattered they're asked, and they can actually do a lot more for you. So, yeah, I've got through the way I am, of course, and probably come up on the upside. But maybe I would have been more successful if I had been prepared to ask for help in a number of areas. Who knows?
It's conditioned, I think, in our society to be strong, to be bold, to be capable, to, I'm a go-getter, I'm a self-starter, I'm all this kind of thing. And the asking for help, we don't really learn how to do that. And it's a pride thing, ego. Would you say that that's more prevalent in men, or am I generalizing?
Well, I've probably come from that terrible segregation of men called the alpha male, and it's certainly prevalent there. I think possibly it is more prevalent in men, and I think that's partly from some other societal condition factors, which, this is outside the scope of what we're talking about today. So I think it is more prevalent in men. But then there's the old, slightly macho phrase, which is so true, that everybody bleeds when they get cut.
Well, that's true. And yet I think the skill of asking for help is what's missing. And I don't think it is. I don't think that this particular segue is out of the scope of our conversation, because we're talking about human skills. And I guess asking for help at the right time from the right people and for the right reasons is a human skill. And if you get good at that, then you actually can accelerate, because we can't do it all. We need help from other humans, and we need help from technology.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And now you mention that, it's interesting, because I talked earlier about people being fearful of automation. And I hadn't thought of it like this, but maybe that is exactly the same fear. Asking for help, fear of automation. It's getting some assistance, basically. And it does talk, against that. No, I can do it. I'm in control piece.
Control, what a word. Oh my goodness. I could talk to you for hours about control, because many people, I think, are trying to control things they can't control. I write about that. I speak about that. And I work on myself to let go of control where it's not serving me. And I know you're very sensitive to that, because you work with a lot of founders and in a lot of, with but let's just say in startups, they are in control, but if they try to maintain control for too long, that something bad is going to happen. Would you say?
Well, I think there's a couple of pieces of this. One is when talking to founders, there's only some things they can control. the quality of their product, the cost base to a certain extent, people they hire, and the execution of their plans, or development of strategy and execution of their plans. If the market changes, if a new competitor comes in the market that changes the landscape, they can't control that. There is 0 point worrying about it. What you've got to do is, when it happens, is pivot and do something slightly different, which startups, thankfully, particularly tech ones, can be quite good at. But very practical example, I've sat in the board meetings of the startups that I work with, and they all talk about competitor doing this, competitor doing that, competitor doing the other. And a number of times I've said it must sound like I could get an AI to do it, an AI John Michaelis on this piece, definitely. Because what I say is, well, has something significant changed in the market? Yes or no? And if the answer is no, those competitors have been doing this for the last 2 years, well, let's not worry about it. Let's just crack on. We see the opportunity. We're going after it. Now, in the rare event that someone says yes, then you do have to have the drains up and a proper strategic review. But, I mean, the number of times that's happened once in the last 4 years, it's been such a big market shift so quickly that we had to take a completely different strategy. So it's very rare. But honestly, that's a classic example. You can't control what competitors doing on day to day. Just let it go.
Right.
And then think about other things in one's life, about what you can and what you can't control.
Yes, I hear a song coming on, but we'll save the listeners from that. And also our time is running out. Is there one last tip that you have for people listening to us today around working with technology, or how they should be looking at AI?
Okay, sure. The big thing, and I have said it before, is be yourself. Play to your human strengths. What is it that you are really good at as you as a person? Right? And probably it's slightly more heart than head. I can't believe I'm saying that, but it probably is the reality. And I'm afraid I'm going to be a bit cheeky and go for 2 tips. Right? The other one, again, is very pragmatic, very simple. And you might have heard it before, because I say it a lot. But it is to really push away the routine and the drudgery that's bogging you down. And very simple tip here. When you search for something on Google, do your Google search. But then go and do your Google search again with the search criteria. Put a space and 2 letters, AI. You'll be surprised what tools you find that can help you, that are available off the shelf really cost effectively.
I had forgotten that, because we did an interview last year, and I have forgotten to do that for a whole year, but I will start. Anyway, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you again.
Absolutely.
Thank you for sharing so much wisdom. And of course, I shouldn't be surprised that most of that wisdom was around human strengths and human skills, and AI is really about humans.
It's a supporting role. But great fun interview. Thank you, Mindy, for inviting me on.
You are very welcome. And we'll see everybody next week. And we'll see you online. Look John up and put that space and say AI, John Michaelis space AI, and see what you find. See ya. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Thoughtful Leader. And I hope it's inspired you to be more thoughtful as a leader in your business. Please consider subscribing and leaving a review. An important question for you. Do you want to create a culture of thought leadership in your organization? My best-selling book, The Thoughtful Leader, is available now on Amazon and many other sites in paperback, ebook, and audiobook formats. Please visit www.mindygk.com for more great content. That's www.mindygk.com. Speak to you again soon.